Yes.
Poor thing.
Well, welcome everybody.
Unbelievable.
Thanks.
Oh my God, you guys, I can't hear anything. You're gonna have to like carry me.
Okay, Jeannie, welcome. Can you hear now?
Kind of.
Okay, well, hopefully you'll adjust that. Welcome everybody to another 360 roundtable panel discussion. And this one is very exciting to me, very near and dear to my heart, obviously. And it's all about health and nutrition and balance and wellness, especially in the new era of COVID-19. It's not going away. It's going to be in our lives forever. We need to make sure we figure out ways that we're going to be able to live with this in a balanced and stressless life. I can't say stress-free, or I can say that, but we should all strive to get to that point, obviously. Today, so we've had a few sessions with local business owners and had a great time moderating and just having a free-flowing discussion. And today should be no different. Introductions, we have Megan Kinsey, owner and lead instructor of Motivate Cardio Barre Cycle here in Newburyport. Thanks for joining, Megan.
Thank you.
We love having you guys, you and your crew, obviously, as you represent. We have Chad and Nick from Proform PT. I have firsthand knowledge of Megan and Chad Nick as well. They're in Salisbury and bring tons of education and thought about what can help us remain healthier in this COVID era. And we also have Dr. Jeannie Donovan, who I've known for quite a while as well, who's the owner and chiropractor of JD Chiropractic. And what a time to be, hi Jeannie, what a time to be able to get adjusted and try to get back to normal, to try to get free flowing here. And this panel right here, as I said, is just, to me, life is about balance. And if we're all going too hard on one thing, we're not going to have balance. And this really is the same thing, in what I do with, as a CPA for E-Rock Tax, is trying to teach people that it's all about balance, trying to teach people that you can't jump ship when the market goes down, or you can't buy everything when the market goes up. You have to remain an even keel. But before you can even do anything in your own life, you have to be able to prioritize your own health. You have to be able to take care of yourself, to be able to take care of your spouse and kids in business and taxes and finance and all that. In this era, I've never seen anything in 31 years of public practice and trying to deal with the public and their money. And so these people that are with me here today can certainly help it out. I'm just going to throw it right out, to you, Jeannie, first. And what's the ways, and I want to hear from all of you, just real quickly, how have you pivoted during this COVID era, and what do you see as like the main goal for you going forward as a small business owner in Newburyport?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the big pivot for me was really deciding when to close and when to reopen. I know a lot of people had a lot of fear going on, and rightfully so, but I knew that it was time to go back to work when I was getting a lot of calls at home for people with various, symptoms, obviously headache, neck pain, and headaches I see often. But I knew I had a place to help people. And when I did open, I was really surprised at how many people wanted to come in. The big pivot also was, keeping everyone safe, wearing masks, making sure everyone was sanitized, everything was sanitized that people touched, having hand washing and hand cleaning areas. But I couldn't believe how many grateful people I had, just saying how thankful they were for me to be open. And I think that's really because, we hold stress in our bodies, whether the stress is physical, chemical, or emotional. And this epidemic, covered all three. People weren't moving as well. We had a lot of worry, finance, health, school, children. I mean, you name it, the list goes on and on and on. So definitely, helping people release stress was an integral part of being a practitioner at this time.
What about you guys, Chad and Nick? I know I shut myself down for a period of time. I'm sure some other people did as well. You're in a brand new space. Take a look at that. That's their upstairs space. Tell us what you guys did in this to pivot and to remain relevant in the COVID era?
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough to be deemed essential in the state of Massachusetts. So we never closed, but we did have to make a lot of changes, of course, you know, with the guidelines and regulations set forth by the CDC and such. But one of the big things that we did do is we took the time that we had we had a decrease in patient caseload. So we took the time to really restructure the business model. And if anything, it's been a real big step forward for us, even though it's a terrible time. But looking at the positive side of things, we've really taken a step back and really restructured the way that we work with patients as well as how we schedule patients. We want to be able to make patient care our number one. So by giving patients more time and scheduling in that manner, we're able to spend more time with our patients now, as well as develop other programs that we haven't had time to kind of put in place. So now that we've had the extra time to do so, we've now got training programs, nutrition programs, and now we're working towards like sleep coaching and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. So it's really kind of, you know, been beneficial in that way. But, you know, of course we've had to make a lot of changes along the way as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think on a personal note as well too, like the whole pandemic, in terms of restricting going out on the leaving on the weekends, that kind of stuff, it's helped us kind of solidify our own personal health routines, whether at home, work, and everything in between. You know, because we're generally healthy, but everyone partakes in things that may not be so healthy for us. So being able to iron those out and refine the whole process of health, because in all reality, it's something we do day in and day out. You don't achieve health. No one ever really achieves it. It's something you just live every day. So being able to refine that process has been big.
Yeah, every time I learn from all you guys when I talk to you guys, and so it's great to hear stuff like that. And now, Megan, I know that we'll talk about what the city of Newburyport's doing. They are opening restaurants and closing some streets for certain nights, and that's been great. And so you have had to shut down your inside exercise space. So the future, what does the future hold for fitness studios, for gyms, for wellness spaces? And Jeannie, I know yours is a little bit easier, but what did you do to pivot, Megan, and what does the future hold? And Chad, too, your space right there. I can't see if there's going to be, what if 20 people, you might have to limit it. So, but Meg, tell me how the outdoor classes are going.
So, well, they're going great. It's just so nice to be back together. Initially, I think it was 2 days prior to Governor Baker basically putting the mandate out there that we weren't going to be in studio anymore. I had already decided for us, previous to that, for 2 weeks, I had started limiting the number of people and spacing them. But once we had that hard closure, the next day we went virtual. I'm blessed that our main exercise modality is bar. We add cardio as well, but we really make a point to be able to do anything successfully without any equipment at all, which really has helped us pivot. So our virtual model works nicely in people's homes. So if they've got a computer or a phone of any sort, boom, they're on our Zoom meetings. And that's how so similar to this, the ability for the instructor to have a grid of people and still be able to have eyes on them, so we can discuss. So we're not utilizing our typical hands-on adjustments that we do in a bar class, but instead visually. And I always ask them to move their cameras so I could see them. With that said, not everyone wanted to, and they blacked out their screen, which was totally okay. But I was able to say, like, Colleen, shift your shoulders 3 inches forward, right over your wrists, and all those cues that we were able to do, we were still able to do. And we've had classes upwards of 30 people where, you know, they were so happy to be in a live situation with us, because we also offered them the on-demand option so they can pull up the past classes. And a lot of them chose that because their schedule is such that it needed to be happening that way. But a lot of them purposely chose to stay on schedule, which that accountability piece was huge, to stay sort of in that rhythm, to Nick's point. And for the fact that we were seeing them on screen, they knew they couldn't flake. Like, it's, you know, to just kind of, you know, and on demand, you can pause and come back when you're ready. And that was huge. Plus that 5 seconds, not 5, maybe 2 minutes before and after, we would talk to each other to create that sense of community that is hugely instrumental in my business. And I think just as humans in regards to health and wellness, I think it's underestimated how important social interaction is. It's okay in 2 dimensions, but being outdoors now, we've got 13 classes outdoors in 4 different parks in Newburyport. Having people, you can't believe the joy that is like emanating. If I could say rainbows and unicorns are coming out of their ears as they approach us in class, it's no exaggeration. They are thrilled to be together again. So it's been nice.
It's amazing that you think about this. It took this awful virus. Why weren't we doing this all along anyway? Because you're out in nature. A workout in nature has got to be different than in an air-conditioned
Huge.
studio or a heated studio. You know what I'm saying? So
Agreed. And I actually stepped on that point. I asked them to step off their mat and put their bare feet. Like there's that whole thing about earthing. That's, you know, studies that show that putting your feet on the earth without shoes, without a mat, there's research that suggests that adds to one of the many different ways we achieve that health and wellness. So having them do that, I was like, we get to do that now. We didn't get to do that in the studio.
so now
Yeah, so there's been a bunch of silver linings there for sure.
For sure.
with the city, is this indefinitely? There are 13 classes. I'm just curious, can other people get yoga instructors? Can they have classes outside, and can this run through the fall? And that would lead me to another question. Jeannie, can you adjust outside, or Chad and Nick, can you guys do some work outside if people wanted that for for their service? So I don't anybody take it away.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I started early on. We were lucky enough to have a couple of warmer days in April. So I thought, I'd do curbside chiropractic. I have a portable table, and visited a couple of patients and one family that has 3 kids, and one of the kids has some special needs, and wearing a mask is just not something that this child could do. So that was great to do. But mostly I'm back in the office. I did some telesessions too. So the curbside chiropractic will be an option, but most people are choosing to come into the office because it's pretty easy to do that.
Yeah, I think we know that you can text them. They're waiting outside. There's no one's crossing paths. You're sanitizing really well. But for the future of gyms and indoor classes, I mean, I guess you'll have them indoors, Megan, but you'll only have 6 people.
Yeah, well,
like that, right?
and that remains to be seen. I don't know if as the phasing continues, if we're going to start going back to a standard spacing or not. I am installing a new filtration system that treats the air with UV light and hydrogen peroxide and such. So, I mean, we have tons of windows, and I intend to keep them open, but eventually the winter comes. I honestly don't know what will happen. I mean, there are studies that suggest the passive exercise, the typical bar we do, the rate of transmission is far less than in like the higher intensity modalities, similar to like the Zumba. The study was about Zumba instructors specifically. The core cardio classes, all things of that nature are really different. So at least again, I've lucked out. Bar win was a win for me again. So if they start differentiating our exercise modalities and what can be closely spaced versus what can't, which I highly doubt the state's going to get that nitpicky, but hopefully it'll work out for us.
Gyms as well, I'd imagine, right? Isn't that what, I don't know what the rule is with all the gyms across Massachusetts. They're spacing. Is that all it comes down to?
Well, they're in phase 3. I don't know if all those things been laid out. Chad, would you know?
I do believe it is phase 3, and I don't know if they'll follow suit with New Hampshire, but for the gyms in New Hampshire that are already opening, it's almost scheduled time, like appointment times. And you have an hour block where you can go in there and you do your workout. Obviously, they're limiting it to a certain amount of people, and I think I would assume that maybe Mass might follow suit with that, but I haven't heard anything yet on that direction.
Chad, while I got you guys, I want to segue a little bit and talk about nutrition, which you are what you eat. Sounds corny, but it really is true, and it's never been more true in this pandemic. I mean, you see social media, people are gaining 100 pounds, losing 100 pounds. They can't control themselves. I know you guys, I know Jeannie and Nick, we're all into nutrition and how we take care of our families. But Nick and Chad, what are you guys doing specifically as far as meal prep, and give us a quick overview of how you're using nutrition to help get through this and help people going forward?
Yeah, so I mean, I think meal prepping is huge. I've been doing that for many years, and there's a lot of benefits with the meal prepping, and I typically do it on Sunday night, and I get all my meals ready for the week. It's very simple to go in the fridge and grab your meal for the day, take it with you, and you'll be more consistent with eating what you make instead of going next door to to the pizza shop or whatever. in terms of whatever you make for meal prepping is totally independent upon the person. You know, I mean, I'm a very strict individual, like most people know. So I like my chicken and rice. But I venture to vegetables. So I like my chicken now and then. But everybody's different, you know, as long as you're getting in what you need to get in. And number one, most importantly, as long as however you're dieting or however you look at it, it's a lifestyle change and it's sustainable. It has to be sustainable. If it's not sustainable, it's not going to last. So that's the big take home. So if you're, you know, like, I want to try this new fad diet, that's great. But if you can't sustain it, then unfortunately, the research and experience shows that it doesn't last, you know. So,
and that's why the 80-20 rule is a good heuristic, or like a rule of thumb for most people, where you meal prep, you know, for your 5-day week, and you hit it 80% of the time, and then the other 20% you can, you know, live a little bit, have some fun. So myself, I meal prep as well, but meal prep for Monday to Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, just kind of figure it out. Most of the time end up eating pretty well Saturday, Sunday, but sometimes it happens you indulge a little bit. But then you meal prep Sunday and get right back to it. And this is a great time right now because, you know, restaurants are starting to get back open, but, you know, a lot of places weren't open for a long time and people were stuck at home. It's a great time to play around with different recipes and meals. Try new things, try new vegetables, try new, you know, protein sources, and play around with certain things that you didn't know you liked before and whatnot, and mix some things in there.
I like that. It's all about balance too. If you're all 100% the whole way, it's not going to happen. Jeannie, what's it like? And Megan, you guys got to cook for a lot of men in the family. How does that work?
There's a lot of boys here. 6 boys between the 2 of us.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely 80-20. The boys are enjoying the 20. Sometimes it squeaks over to the 30. Lots of baking. And, you know, I've noticed a lot of my patients have started gardens. So that's incredibly positive. You know, people are gardening more. It's a great time to, you know, be in control of what you're cooking at home, you know, just like the ProForm guys said. But also it's a great time for produce. So it's easier to eat really great vegetables and get some awesome minerals and vitamins in. And so I think people are looking forward to that. We all know, and we want to share it with the community, that what you eat, if you don't eat well, it can absolutely cause inflammation. And we know that inflammation can cause pain. It can cause, you know, headaches, brain fog, so many different things. So I think, you know, all of us have, I think nutrition is really important for all of our patients and clients.
Mm-hmm.
Food is medicine, Megan, right? I mean, think about it.
Well, I would echo Jeannie's sentiments in regards to 70-30. So last summer is when I got certified in my nutrition program. I followed Chad and Nick's lead and did precision nutrition as well. So I was full tilt, and I never had such angry sons. Like every single snack food I had removed from they were so upset with me. And I realized I had gone into the 100-0 category. So there's a lot of pushback, and we're back to the 80-20. I'm generally about sourcing. If I feel like I've got a lot of good sources, then I feel like whatever's around, even if it's a snack food, and it's not, I mean, just if it's a snack food, if I could get it, I can at least remove the industrial oils. I feel like, all right, so it's been done in avocado oil. At least it's a snack food. The main snack foods that people see in Market Basket are just not in my cabinet. It's like these off brands people have never heard about, which is usually the better sourced stuff. So that's how I kind of let the 20 kind of phase in. A lot of protein, a lot of fat. I want to satiate so that they don't feel like they need to have that snack. So people are always surprised about how into fat I am. Like if I can cook with ghee and butter, a lot of oils, all the time, that's a big part. I mean, I pump the oil into my morning shake with my protein. So there's literally, you know, if I don't blend it, there's an oil slick up top.
Right.
So yeah.
Just for being satisfied and also balancing your blood sugar. You know, you won't be hungry as much.
Yep. So fat does not make you fat. I think people are over that now, but I still see people shopping for if I see someone in Market Basket and they're wondering why I'm grabbing whole everything, and they're like, well, I will just, you know, there's no judgment. I just tell them, and they're like, I didn't know that. So there's a lot of people who still think that no fat, non-fat, low fat is the way to go. It ain't.
They usually just supplement the non-fat, low-fat with more sugar, so it's just
Right.
worse. Yeah.
To make it palatable. Otherwise, take the fat out, it's got no taste.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that's one of the things the pandemic has limited us. I mean, I usually go to Whole Foods, and every time I go through there, I'm always looking at labels, and I always learn something. And now we're not sort of not doing that as much as we used to. Hey guys,
Right.
Chad and Nick, what do you eat for breakfast? I know you're preparing food. But get into a little bit. I know what
How
you
do you
eat.
get those muscles?
You really
I
want to
want
go?
to
I
tell
want
our
to start taking notes. Go.
yeah.
I'm taking
All right.
notes as you talk.
I'll let Nick go first.
All right, so breakfast, you guys are gonna like this one. So I usually make a shake, and I make it the night before just so I can wake up and have it. And it's loaded with a bunch of different stuff. It's got spinach, kale, some frozen mixed berries, a little bit of beet powder, some cinnamon, and then I throw in actually cricket powder, some ground up crickets, and then peanut butter and a little bit of protein powder as well. So yeah, that's my breakfast. I usually have that with 2 hard-boiled eggs.
What is that? About 50 grams of protein, or how much are you trying to get?
Mine, when I make it, is about 56 grams of protein, give or take.
I mean, you guys trying to eat a certain amount of that throughout the day, depending on your lifting schedule, or how? I mean, I know you have a routine, which is great, and that's part of. We all want people to have routines so they can then join our practices and help their bodies out. So I got to imagine that's part of it, right?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the person's goals, right? So, I mean, you know, it's not the end all be all that you need to take in 50 grams of protein.
Yeah.
Just because Nick does it doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's good for, you know, Sam or Sally or whatever, you know? So like, I don't actually, Nick takes in more protein than I do because he's more swole than I am.
I'm trying to get there. That's why.
But Nick's a lot more variable than I am. Nick's working on me. I'm getting there. But I'm pretty simplistic when it comes to food. I like to try to keep everything simple. You know, you can make it very colorful. That's just not my thing, but it can be anybody's thing, right? So, I mean, I'm very simple. I like English muffin, and I love my peanut butter. I will load peanut butter in there. Like I'm like Megan. I'm no stranger to fats. I load up on the fats. I love it. I have this. It's not my saying, but it's somebody else's saying. But it's you got to earn your carbs. You know, and earning your carbs is basically what did you do throughout the day where you can utilize those carbs. You're not utilizing carbs very well. Maybe you need to, like Jeannie was saying, maybe you need to use fat as a filler. You know what I mean? Carbs, sometimes you're not using those as efficiently as you need to, right? So I tend to be more on that side of things. But I have my protein shake in the morning with my my English muffin and my peanut butter, you know, and then everybody knows I love my oatmeal, so I'll load up on my oats later.
Gluten-free oats? Not gluten-free oats?
No, well, is there a thing?
Yeah, they started making them the Bobs, that big bag of Bobs.
Yeah. Because I know that it's like, you know, it can be made in a place that, you know, might not be right 100%, right? So even though it says gluten-free, it might not be, but I think for the most part it probably is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeannie,
I'm low gluten.
I'm not gluten-free though. Yeah.
I'm
What's
not
that?
gluten-free either.
Yeah.
No.
I think it's like everyone has to really figure out what's right for them. And that's why I kind of like those elimination diets for people. I
Figure
hate
it
the
out.
word diet, but even just for 30 days, you know, eliminating things and then figuring out like what bugs you. Like some people can eat wheat, you know, some people don't have to be gluten-free, even though many people, you know, have a reaction. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with dairy, but I know a lot of my patients do, you know, so I guess once you figure out what works for your body and your chemistry, then I think it makes, you know, feeding yourself and fueling yourself a lot easier.
And on that, to pay attention. And that's just the other thing. So to another one of the many different ways to kind of bring about a little bit more health and wellness to your life, mindfulness. And there's a lot of applications for mindfulness, but one of them specific to nutrition is slow down when you eat. So when I'm working with clients in that regard, I'm like, first sit down. Your butt's got to stay seated when you're eating, and remove the TV, the computer, any distractions like that, because I want you to kind of like eat it and put this fork down and have a moment and think about it and chew more. Because a lot of times if you actually pay attention so in regards to the gluten specifically, I'm not gluten-free, but if I eat a high gluten meal any given moment, it's so fast, the reaction. So I've paid attention long enough, I'll be tired, brain fog, and my nose. I'll start to feel like I need to blow my nose. So I And if it's during allergy season, take all of that and dial it up.
Oh yeah.
So during this kind of time of year, I'm not eating pizza. I'm not eating, when I'm doing that 20% opposite the 80, I'll make sure that because it doesn't feel good. I have to take a significant nap after I eat something that's like a high gluten meal. So what's the point? So I just rather remove it.
And what most of the recent research is telling us about allergies and food sensitivities is very few people actually have like full-blown allergies where they can't be exposed to any of it. Most people are sensitivities, and sensitivity is to the amount of the substance or whatever it is. So it's not necessarily if you have a little bit of it, you're going to have a reaction. It's the amount of it. So it's people. People have too much on the dairy side. They have too many servings or whatever it is because they're eating too fast. They're not putting the utensil down between bites and all that kind of stuff.
And it all makes you are what you eat. It all makes perfect sense. And if your immune systems are under attack, if you have inflammation, then COVID's more rampant. It's more out there for people that are not taking care of their bodies. On another note about taking care of their bodies, have you seen people getting back at like that sort of fell into some bad habits because of the lockdown, and then they're getting back at it and they're maybe doing it too quickly? So now they hurt their necks or their bodies, and the chiropractor, are you just telling your clients, please take it easy? Or are there any pre-stretches that can be done before people do a workout? Yeah,
less is more. So when getting back into anything, you always want to do a little bit less than you actually think you should do. It's just a good rule of thumb to go by. And start out easy, start out light, and kind of like Megan was talking about with the mindfulness with eating, be mindful about your movement. If things are feeling more difficult than they used to, it's probably a good indication that you should back off. And if things are like, oh, this actually feels okay, then you can push it a little bit and then recheck in with your body and say, okay, that definitely is getting me sore now,
In regards to for what our programming, in a group fitness situation, there's different words for it: regressions, layering down, modifications. So in a group setting, we're instructing everyone to do sort of the same thing, but then we start talking about, we scan the body. So there's that mindfulness component. Scan the body. I'll generally do it top down so I don't miss a part. Like crown of head is shining this way. Your neck is strong. Your shoulders are. So once I start moving down the body, if any of those things are out of whack and you're feeling tension maybe in your head, shoulders, neck, or your lower back instead of where it's supposed to be, I'd like you to now drop your knees. That's the modification. Now, some people, their mindfulness component is just not as strong, the proprioception. So I might actually say specifically, Jennifer, will you please drop your knees? Because I'm watching the arch of the back. I'm watching the tension creep up. So, but I usually narrate that at the very beginning of class. Please, that does not make you any, more of a wimp, or I don't know, that you're giving up. Not at all. It means that you're honoring your body, that you're recognizing that this exercise is not feeling like it's supposed to, and you're letting yourself on ramp at a much slower pace, which is going to give you that longevity versus, all right, now I'm going to send, not that I don't want to send you to Chad and Nick or to Jeannie, but if you'd like to maybe just work out a few more times before I send you there, then you want to, take those modifications with us.
Yeah. I mean, I would like more people to do, to motivate or go to Proform, because I think the biggest thing that I noticed in the practice when it comes to, answering your question, how are people moving? I have a lot of walkers. I have a lot of people that think the more the better. So they're walking 6 miles, 8 miles. And then I also have a big group of, we're just going to Peloton every day because we bought the Peloton, and I love Peloton, and I love all the other things on the app as well. But you can't just bike, you can't just walk, and people don't realize a few things. And one of them is you're using the same muscles over and over again, and you're moving in one plane of motion forward. So we have to incorporate moving to the side. I mean, we have to incorporate shorter burst type workouts. I mean, these three can talk about that more, but the injuries that come from them are real. And then you couple that with other stresses and strains, or sitting at a desk for a long time, and then your family being home, and all of the stress, then we have like a tsunami of stress building up in the body and pain. So we've been working with that a lot, trying to re-educate people, less, a little bit less, changing your workouts, moving different ranges of motion, definitely, sending a lot of stretching routines home with people.
Have there been more different
But-
injuries with people from home? Have any of you guys seen different types of injuries, an increase of injuries because people have been working from their home office, or maybe my kids have been sitting on the floor, like doing school, like, I mean, is there a difference in that, or you're going to start to see a lot of repetitive stuff over and over again anyway, I'd imagine?
Well, repetitive could be sitting in a chair. I mean, that's repetitive, right? So a lot of people we've been getting a pretty big influx of people with like generalized low back pains, right? That have been sitting for hours because they've been doing a lot of, virtual sessions, whether it be Zoom business meetings or whatnot. They can't go into the office and like we were just talking about, this could be the wave of the future. So how do we get people to be more aware of the fact that they're going to be sitting for hours? Well, I mean, we could get a sit to stand desk, we could, make it a point to get up every 15, 20 minutes and walk around, we don't want to be in one position for a long period of time. I mean, that's what we do now. So we want to just keep on moving, whether it's,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think also like people who sit, they're always asking, I should get a standing desk then. I'm like, well, yeah, but you could sit, you could stand, you could move to the couch, you could move to the table. Like we have to be moving really ideally every 15 minutes, but every half hour, otherwise the muscles do start to change.
Standing for 8 hours is just as bad as sitting for 8 hours. Like it's
Absolutely.
I do that sometimes too. I do all these things. Oh my God.
I encourage people, I've been encouraging people a lot, especially during right now, because people are working from home, to actually sit on the floor while they work on their computer or whatever, because sitting on the floor is not comfortable inherently. So you move, you just instinctively move around every 5 minutes. So you just, when you're locked into your work, it is what it is. But if you sit on the floor, you're going to keep moving and you might get frustrated, but that's okay. Because then you'll get up and you'll go move around, right? So you'll keep moving.
I like that. So let me segue here to another topic, which I know that you four all really love, is that I see people stressed out about their money, as you can imagine. Like the stress is real, and some of it is anxiety, and some of it is generational and stuff. And so, and I've had some health issues myself, and I've learned how to breathe better going forward. So breathe. And I know that you guys have done the Wim Hof method, the ice cold. I don't know exactly what one calls it. I've seen specials. I've read his book. I have not done it yet. Maybe the next time. But who wants to lead off and tell me about or tell us about that? And I know you've been sitting in ice baths for long periods of time. Got to be crazy for the immune system, but teaches you how to breathe and relax, which has got to be good overall.
Well, I'll introduce it because I hosted it, and then these guys came. I'm not. No, you're gonna explain the intricacies of it and all the benefits. That's you're the hard part.
I got
you got it. All right, you got me. So last year, so I'll try to make it short. We became friends with this guy. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he's from South Jersey, where my family lives. And he is a Wim Hof certified instructor. So my sister, ironically, she and her husband own a studio in Stone Harbor, New Jersey, and they hosted him. And my sister was just going off about it and how amazing it was. I'm like, will he travel up here? And she said, yes. Yeah. So last fall, I hosted him, and we did a session, and we did it at the studio. And it was awesome. And then immediately, all the people who are on the fence about it, but then, we gushed about it on social media. They're like, you got to do this again. So he just came this past weekend, and we hosted it at my sister's house because we had to kind of consider more space for everybody, and we're outside. And all these guys just happened. It's just so ironic that here we are together. And I think this had already been in the works, and all of us were doing this because, you got to practice what you preach. And it was, talk about the benefits of being in community. It's like literally, you get done the breathing. He takes you through a big breathing techniques, and Nick's going to go into that. And the mindset piece, you get done that. And the first time we did it, Nick happened to be right next to me. We got up and we looked at each other like we were on some, I don't do drugs, so I don't know what a drug high is big into. We were like, dude, like we just got done. It was awesome. And the fact that we were in community together with it, it was like the energy was vibrating off the walls. It was stellar. So the ice bath part is awesome. That culminates the whole thing. So it was awesome. There's so much research about it. And Nick, have at it.
Yeah, so I was at both workshops, the one back in October and this past weekend. And I, since October, have been implementing the cold exposure piece twice a week with cold showers. and then do the breathing just kind of randomly throughout the week. But since this past weekend, I've been doing it every morning, and it's been awesome. But essentially, the Wim Hof method has 3 pillars. So like Megan said, the mindset and the breathing technique, and then cold exposure. And the goal of these pillars is to gain better control of your autonomic nervous system. Now, your autonomic nervous system is typically automatic, but we do have some semblance of control over it. And in today's society, it runs awry because we're always in temperature controlled environments. You know, we're always on technology, which stimulates a fight or flight response. And we're all just way too stressed out, which is, again, a fight or flight response. So the Wim Hof method allows you to elicit a little bit of a parasympathetic or a rest and digest response during these fight or flight experiences. So we are essentially just training our nervous system the same way we would train our cardiovascular system with running, or the same way you train your musculoskeletal system with resistance training.
Pretty surreal.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was
He got me to
awesome.
do it this year, and that's like totally outside of my comfort zone.
That's way outside his wheelhouse.
And it was neat because so Chad and his wife did it together. Nick and his wife Alicia, she's there. My husband came. Jeannie and her husband Mark were there. So a lot of people brought family. A woman, she's a Buddha yoga instructor in town. She brought her mother, and it was just, I don't know. I think there's so much about doing it in community too, that ironically, I'm reading a book about the joy of movement, and there's a whole section on how doing things in community, and not just, being together is one thing, but doing things in sync. Like think about dancing or think about marching, but when you're working in a group exercise space where everyone's moving left and right and forward and back together at the same time, there's studies that show like the neurochemical benefits are just enormous, which, I think sadly, part of the COVID time that we're in has really removed a certain amount of that, which I just cannot wait to get back online, because I don't know, for me, maybe I'm hardwired for it more than an average person. I felt like any anxiety I experienced in this time, I think it was because I was lacking that. And it's real. It made me hurt physically to not have that.
No, we're not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Megan. And that's why it's so great that you're doing the outside classes. And I think another powerful tool that came from this weekend was giving people tools, because, when you're in a place of fear, you can start thinking that, your body isn't powerful, when there's a million commercials on like drug ads telling you your body doesn't have an ability to heal and you are lacking something. So these techniques, these mindfulness techniques, are really good to kind of remind us that, it's not the Band-Aid that heals. It's not the potion. It's not the lotion. It's your body, and you can tap into it through, breathing, through exercise. You don't have to jump in an ice bath, but it's really great, and you'll see how powerful you are. So
how long was that ice bath?
That's why it's so awesome.
We're averaging 2 minutes. The goal was to sit in it for 2 minutes. Oh, and here's an interesting thing. You guys had left, and I jumped back in, but I jumped back in without any of the breathing, and with the mindful, that space you have to be in. I can't tell you how much less comfortable it was. Yeah. It was actually the pinprickles, it was awful. Like, it was so much, to speak to what Jeannie just said, you've got so much power. And that's the part that the Wim Hof method teaches in the beginning, the mindset and the breathing, that when you apply it, it's so, the Wim Hof instructor, his name is Errol, he illustrated the beginning and the end of his conversation about this, and then we can get off on Hof, he, as a former SEAL, he obviously he was in battle, he was in the Middle East, and he experienced, firsthand that firefight, and he had a moment back here in the States where it was triggered. He was reading an article, and the article was speaking to an exact place that he was when he was in battle. And he started having all the responses that go with, he felt like he was there. He started sweating, his breathing started getting uncontrolled. And he had already been training Wim Hof. So there he is in the middle of like a coffee shop, he's in public, and he's seeing the sweat drip down on the article. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So he's like breathing. And he's like, so his logo for his business, he's also a leadership workshop person, it's Find Your Breath. So he immediately stopped, and he found his breath. So he started employing the techniques that he had learned. He brought everything back to that space of like homeostasis, that he calmed himself down, and he was able to, so to go to Jeannie's point, yes, he did go to the, he could have gone to psychologists and psychiatrists and worked through it that way first, sure. And there's a place and time, and maybe some meds would have been employed to help him. But when his wife said, "Are you going to go do that?" He's like, "But I actually stopped having that reaction. I was successful. I stopped breathing that way. I stopped sweating that way." And it's been with him ever since. It's a technique that it can be applied in traffic, white knuckling, or I'm about to have a speech, or I'm about to have a discussion with someone that's going to be really, really challenging. And here you go. You go into your breath work. That is, again, a muscle, just like Nick spoke to being cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, that you have to practice in order to call upon it when you need it. So when I called upon it, that ice bath was great. When I kind of ignored it, it sucked. So.
I'm sure everybody that's listening and watching has called upon it while they're trying to have a Zoom meeting for work at home, while their kids are working, quote unquote, from school, from home, and then all the tensions boil over, and that's when we end up needing all these, wonderful people in the health industry to help us sort of get through to the next level, to where we need to be. There was a couple of things I definitely wanted to touch on. And again, this involved you guys, Nick and Chad, are doing some sleep coaching. And I, for one, and actually my mom told me when I had kids, like, let your kids cry themselves to bed, right? When they've been up since 5 a.m. By the time 6 or 7 is ready, they can cry themselves to sleep, and you can have your time. And it's like, sleep is so important from the time we're very little. And I think it's taken for granted. Now, certainly in the COVID era, people sleep until 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning or later. Teenagers, wink, wink. I think some of us know that. And what is this class you guys are taking, and how can it help us? Obviously, it will help our immune system be stronger, but it can help our everyday lives too.
Yeah, Nick and I are taking a sleep coach cert right now, and it's something we're obviously super passionate about, along with a bunch of other things. But it's one of those other missing links, like nutrition and everything else, that is kind of like, like we say, it's like, oh, you should eat better, but nobody tells you how to eat better. Or, oh, you need more sleep, but is it really that easy? And it's really not. It's not complex either. So it's one of those things where everybody thinks that, the more sleep they get, the better off they are. Or, geez, I didn't really get much sleep yesterday, so I'll sleep more tomorrow. I wish that's the way it worked, but it doesn't work that way. Looking more scientifically into it, sleep is one of those important recovery tools, and we do, you're right, Stu, we take it for granted. It was once thought that sleep duration was important, but some of us don't require as much sleep. Like, I don't require as much sleep as Nick, and to get the same amount of recovery as needed. It's not the quantity, it's quality. And there's different stages of sleep, and there's things that affect sleep as well. Certain things, like, for example, caffeine. To get even deeper into it, there's chemicals in the brain that tell us we should be going to bed, but some of those things that we're taking throughout the day, like caffeine, inhibit that process from happening, so we don't feel that tiredness like we should. And then, it throws off circadian rhythms, because everybody has their own circadian rhythm. And then now we're all messed up, right? So certain things that we can do throughout the day, as well as at night before bed, can help to improve sleep quality, so that we can get up and we can be more recovered. Like Nick and I have these funky glasses that we wear at night. Yeah, we got, and our wives make fun of us all the time. They're amber lenses, so it blocks the blue light, because blue light helps to it inhibits the production of melatonin, which is obviously vital for sleep quality and sleepfulness. So we put those on I put mine on at like 7:30 at night, like right when I get home.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's pretty funny, but it's made a huge difference, because you have the app on the phone, but research has shown that that's not super effective. You really need to get it from the source, which is at the eyes. So blocking it from the screen doesn't limit the amount of blue light; it just changes the color of the screen. Stuff like that is super important, and I don't know if you want to dive into it a little bit.
Just kind of piggybacking off that, I won't go deeper into it necessarily. But contrary to what most people think, most sleep issues are behavioral in nature. So it's the things you're doing leading up to that sleep that are disrupting the sleep, not something at night. People tend to think, oh, well, I've always been a bad sleeper. well, you're probably doing something throughout the day that's creating that poor sleep quality, or having difficulty falling asleep, whatever the case may be. And then the other thing is there's never been one disease, condition, sickness, anything that has not been associated with some kind of change or detriment in sleep. So it's clearly very important. And like Chad was saying, it's just the one thing that we're missing. No one's really telling you how to do it better. People are just saying, well, you have a sleep issue, so you should probably just take this oral melatonin and see if it helps. So no one's really coaching it up like you'd go to a trainer and they would coach up, your squat or your deadlift, or you'd go to a running coach and they coach up your running technique and mechanics.
See, that's amazing. So it's more important to have REM sleep, deep sleep, than, length of sleep, is essentially, right? And then learning.
And there's in the different phases. So, REM sleep is your lighter sleep, and that's typically more mentally restorative. So you could look at it in a few different ways. Like if someone has a job where they need to be very creative, they should probably be getting more REM sleep because it's more mentally restorative. But, people who like to, work out and train really hard, they need more physically restorative sleep. So that's your slow wave sleep earlier in the night. That tends to happen right away. The REM sleep tends to happen later in the night, and that's why we wake up amidst dreams a lot of times, because that's your REM sleep, that's your mentally restorative sleep, versus the slow wave is the physically restorative, when your protein synthesis occurs, the muscles rebuild, all that good stuff.
How about the pattern? Maybe you don't know.
Like 90 minutes, so you're going through all these stages within 90 minutes, and people don't realize it, but you have this moment of where you're awake, but your body doesn't realize it. And then you go back in for another 90 minutes, and then you come back up, and you go through these cycles. That's why they say that, unless you're that type of person that naps every single day at the same time every day, then it might be okay. But if you're that type of person that's like, geez, I'm just really tired, I should really nap now, it's going to throw off everything for later, And if you are going to nap, you're either napping for 20 minutes really quick because it's like a reset to your nervous system, or you're napping for 90 minutes so you can go through a full sleep cycle and then come back in.
The relaxing for really quick 20 minutes, Jeannie and I were talking, that's the TM. That's the method that my wife Christy and I learned a few years back, a specific form of meditation, transcendental meditation, which really you just get into the state of nothingness for 20 minutes and you don't fall asleep. So that all these tips. I mean, I didn't even take notes because I see all you people, so I can ask you in person. But there's so many amazing tips here. I would really like to ask each of you now, what are the top lessons that you may have learned from this crisis and that you're going to apply going forward? I mean, it should be individually as well as business-wise. We all know we have our own businesses. But it's like, what have we learned, Jeannie, individually, that can help us, ourselves, and everyone around us?
Gosh. Well, I think something that I've learned many times is that, health is simple. We make it complicated. But a lot of if we really listen into our bodies, then we can figure it out. Like even with the sleep, like when you're tired, go to bed. Like don't force yourself to stay up, like, are you really hungry when you eat before bed? Like, how about you just eat when your body's telling you you're hungry? And definitely now I'm focusing on the breath. I think a big part of it was from last weekend, but I know, some people, even when they stretch, they're stretching like really aggressively and holding their breath, and, they're really not getting anywhere. So, kind of bringing the breath, it's always in my practice, but also into, my own life, or, decreasing, the stress and tension and getting mindful. Because I can't think of any really mindful techniques that don't incorporate breath work. So, and back to the chiropractic thing, I know, when you breathe, you expand your ribs. And when you expand your ribs, you can actually mobilize your upper back. So that would be a good tidbit I just wanted to share and throw in there. So the deep breathing can do a lot for you. So I guess, did that answer the question? I'm hearing everything a little bit because I'm having computer problems.
What about you guys, Chad?
Kind of to piggyback off what Jeannie said, I think it's really kind of given me more time to take a step back and reevaluate things. You know, like owning a business is not easy. You know, it's stressful. You know, especially when you have employees that you have to take care of. You have to make sure that you can pay them, right? So that's nice, right, Nick?
That is nice. It's really nice.
It's stressful, and my biggest problem with owning a business is that work-life balance. So that's one thing that I've really been trying to hone in on, and the breathing was part of it. The sleep is part of it as well. The nutrition I was always pretty good with, but I am becoming a little bit more variable with my vegetables, so that's good. For me, it's been able to give me a little bit more time to take a step back and just look at the whole picture, and enjoy what's in front of you, and what's Alan Stein, be where your feet are.
Be where your feet are. Yeah.
Be in the present, and that's been a tough thing for me. So I've been working hard at that. So yeah.
So before I say my thing, I just want to say one thing regarding what Jeannie said about the breathing. And the way you breathe when you sleep is the way you breathe during wakefulness. So if we're breathing dysfunctionally during the day because we're stressed out, you're not going to sleep well because you won't be breathing well while you sleep, right? So if we can devote some time throughout the day to breathe, well, nasally, whatever it is, deeply expand that rib cage, you're going to breathe better that night and probably sleep better as a result. All right, now my thing, I'm going to get oddly specific, but the one thing I'm taking from this quarantine is do something to take care of your feet every day. And what I mean by that is
he was going to hit the feet, guys.
Get the shoes off.
He's in all of the feet.
Get the shoes off. Go barefoot, because right now everybody who's been in quarantine at home, not at work, all that kind of stuff, they've probably been barefoot more. And I can probably say that a good majority of them have been like, oh yeah, this ache I had here went away. Not just in the feet, knees, hips, back, everything. These aches probably went away because you spent more time barefoot. Shoes are detrimental to our feet, and as a result, they're detrimental up the chain, right? Should we stop wearing shoes? No, not necessarily. It's good protection for your feet. But if you're supplementing that with some foot health stuff, taking care of the feet, roll it out on a lacrosse ball, spread your foot out, get your fingers in between your toes, get that foot nice and wide, you're going to do yourself wonders when you put those shoes back on.
Megan hit it in the beginning. She hit it. I thought Nick was going to piggyback
I know.
Let's go with it. And
I love it.
Just to kind of go off of that, not only are you outside getting your vitamin D, but you're getting your vitamin T too, which is that texture on your feet, that vitamin T.
I love it. This is all so full circle. I love it. My two things are, okay, simply hugs and stadiums. They're the two things that have been my go-to in order to not lose my, okay? So hugs, again, I love research. I like when so I'm probably guilty of when I do things and I want to do them regularly, when I see an article about it that confirms that I'm doing the right thing, I'm like, yeah! So hugging for at least a good 20-second full-on hug. Fortunately, I have 3 sons and a husband who allow me to do this. But then again, my 3 sons were raised to accept a full body hug. I'm talking, we actually will tilt the head and lock in. I want my sons to be comfortable with that. So good. There's research suggests you start to lose a certain amount of stress, and it can be anywhere in the body. It can be old stress. Genial can attest to that. You hold stress from long ago somewhere in your body, and a lot of new healers that are more energy healers can find those spots in your body that might be related to something from your past. So I like to de-stress every day with big, solid hugs. And then the anxiety of running a business has surely been made huge by this. I was talking to Stu before we all got on, that someone likened being an entrepreneur during COVID to eating a glass sandwich. And I would probably say, yeah, I can feel that. So I've had some sleep issues relative to anxiety, and I decided, instead of just sitting there and wallowing in it, yesterday specifically, I strapped on the shoes, and at 4:45 a.m. I was up. I live 2 blocks from Newburyport High School, and up and back is considered 1. I did 6 of them with 60 seconds off, and I try to, I put the earbuds in, I get the music on, and I go for it. And I like when research will tell you that all that kind of sustained physical activity will lower your anxiety. It takes stress away. People report out less depression. So I feel like I've been able to function because I've been doing a lot of stadiums, and there's something about just kind of kicking my own ass. The aggression, the athlete in me from years ago comes out, and it's been I grabbed Jeannie and I did some stadiums one day. It's been good. It's been a good choice. There's a lot of other choices. I like wine, so I could you start drinking? But I decided stadiums are a better choice.
I think the wine
Yeah, I
store.
think that's a great idea though, for, to use COVID to do something different. Like if you always do the same exercise, switch it up. Like if you're always lifting light weights, maybe, go try doing something heavier. Or if you're always doing yoga, then, maybe, just switch it up.
Yep.
And challenge yourself.
This has been a great chat, guys. So much awesome information. I'd like to thank all of you guys for Jeannie and Chad and Nick and Megan for for joining me and then actually talking to me before and after this. I'm assuming you still will, obviously. These guys, honestly, they have so much information to give, and obviously they're willing to give it, and lots of knowledge and friendliness. So please reach out if you can. You can obviously reach me, Stu, STU, at erocktax.com. And we will get you in touch with these wonderful providers. And we're all just trying to, make it in this new world, and just take care of yourself and your neighbors, and be a good person is what I say. So thanks again, guys, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stu.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, stay on. I want to take a picture of you. Can you stay on?
Sure.
Social media, that's part of our business. Ready? Smile.
Make sure to get happy face in it.
Everyone's got a happy face? I think so. Yeah, everyone's smiling. We're good.
What about Nick's feet?
Oh my God. No.